Okay, good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us today. Tonight we have the Fab Four with us for a Tokyo 2020 debrief. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody that's on except the panelists to turn their camera off and turn their microphone off. We've clearly got somebody in the background with their microphone still on. We're going to try and allow some time for some questions tonight. So we'll do the questions through chat. And Enrique, I apologize, I might have to bring you on. I was looking in the chat and I actually couldn't see the way we're set up and ability to send to all the hosts and co-hosts. Is it just my system? Because I'm seeing everyone in the waiting room, everyone in the meeting, and then those of us that are hosts and co-hosts on here.
If someone writes a question in the chat right now, it should only go to the co-hosts.
Okay, sounds good. So ladies and gentlemen, if you do have any questions that will go along, feel free to put them in the chat. And we have about a 90-minute program for us today. And I'd like to bring on and introduce our four panelists. First, Nadine Crowley from Ottawa, who attended the Tokyo Olympics as a referee instructor. Welcome, Nadine.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Excellent. And no particular order, MP Malo from Montreal, who was at the Olympics as a referee.
Hello, everybody.
Michael Weiland, who everybody in Alberta still claims Michael is an Alberta resident, and he is in Calgary tonight, but Michael is a proud resident of Victoria now, right, Michael?
Double duty, yes. I couldn't shy away from that island. My goodness, it's God's country out there, but still, it's still Albertan, true and strong once in a while.
Excellent. And Matt Kallio, who is a Calgary citizen now, originally from Edmonton. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to thank Enrique for hosting tonight and putting together that photo montage at the beginning. So we're going to jump right in. And as I say, if you've got questions as we go, use the chat. We may not answer all the questions because we have a fair amount to get through tonight and want to make sure you get a chance to hear from all the panelists. So for each of you, you were notified in February of 2020 that you've been selected to be part of a 30 referee and 2 referee instructor officiating team for the July-August 2020 Tokyo Olympics. MP, let's start with you. What was it like to be selected to be a referee at the Tokyo Olympics?
Obviously a great feeling. I remember the day like it was yesterday. Just woke up, went to see my email, and I see the title of, I don't know what is the number, but it was, you know, different numbers from the Asian, I don't know how you call it, like Roman. And it says Olympics. So obviously I go really quick and open the email and just, you know, congratulate me that I was on the list. And I was thankful that my boyfriend was just next door. So I just took the phone and silently just show him. And, you know, obviously he got emotional, and it was just to show all the support that the people around me, that they know how badly I worked hard to have a chance to be on the list. And finally I had that opportunity, and no, it was a great feeling for sure.
Great. Nadine, a little bit of a different situation for you as a referee instructor and having worked so many years as an international FIBA referee, but what was that like when you saw the selection sheet?
Well, I was in the middle of a client meeting, typing notes on my computer when it popped up, and I thought I was just going to explode, and I had to wait for 45 more minutes before I could do anything about it. And I was thinking, these people are paying me, I need to pay attention, but I can't. So it was really tough to concentrate on my work, but I ushered them out really fast and emailed the email to my partner. And so, you know, I still had to get through my day of work, and then I was sort of driving home after work, and I kind of had to pull over because, you know, it comes in waves, the excitement comes in waves after, I worked hard as a referee to try and get there as a referee, and it didn't happen. And then when they finally have referee instructors, I get chosen, which it's unbelievable. But usually for me, the first person that I contact is my dad. I come, just like from Michael Weiland, I come from a referee family. My dad was a great referee, and I share every moment with him. And the notice came a little bit late, 2 weeks late, and he died on February 20th. So I had to just share it with my partner and share it with my family, and I just knew that he would be jumping up and down and super happy for me too. So yeah, it was mixed emotions.
Thank you, Nadine. I'm sorry that you didn't get a chance to share that with your dad. So we all know that COVID-19 caused the 2020 Olympics to be postponed, and FIBA actually rescinded the nominations and then renominated the crew with a number of changes a year later. But we were thrilled as Canada to see that Matt and Michael and MP and Nadine were on that list. For Michael and Matt, and we'll start with Michael, what was it like to go through that long period of uncertainty, knowing that, or not knowing if the Olympic dream was going to happen? Would you be nominated again? How did you handle that uncertainty?
Well, Mike, I just want to say before I answer that, Nadine, there's no doubt he was watching down and saw everything and shared in that success. Your dad would have been great to see it live, but he saw it all. So that's really touching. And I think having support systems with our families and friends that are really out rooting for us, I don't think we put enough credit and maybe aren't as grateful as we should be sometimes, that they're there for us along this ride. And that's everyone on this call, as well as all the people following at home. So yeah, in terms of uncertainty, my gosh, uncertainty is now the life in the world. I guess if this cancellation or delay from last year would have happened in any other year, it would have been really, really difficult to kind of comprehend, especially having this dream. I think each of us had to get to the event, and with everything that was unfolding in the world, my goodness, I think we've all become pretty patient and understanding when it comes to uncertainty now. So it was hard for the first month because it happened when everyone was dealing with the same thing, and I think our minds were racing on so many different parts: our health, our family, our business, our friends, and fortunately enough, I think there was enough distractions and peace and calm that was required to just kind of put it on hold and say, we'll see when the time is right. And it was clear they were going to cancel it relatively quickly. So now it's a bit of the anxiety of like, oh, I hope I make that list next year. But as we know, as referees, lots of things evolve, and the organizations can make different changes, but fortunately it worked out for all of us.
Great, thanks, Michael. Matt, how did you handle that uncertainty, from the excitement to the letdown and kind of the wait?
Yeah, I think it's always how you frame things. And for me, when you initially get there, I'll make kind of light of it, because in this modern world, and we had a group of 4 Canadians that are on that list, but we're all connected to our email. And the worst feeling ever is when you get an email with good news and you find out through a text message before you've even been able to experience that good news yourself. And I laugh about it because we did it twice, because every time I got the email, I was like, all right, let's give it an hour before I reach out, because I just want someone to be able to read that email and experience it themselves, in our kind of connected world. But, when the nominations were rescinded, and knowing many people that were there and refereeing with many of those FIBA people that were on that list, my mind immediately went to some people that were in very different positions. I'm still kind of in the middle of my FIBA career, and very fortunate for that. But I thought about some of my peers that were, 49, 50, or going into a new FIBA licensing period where they might be choosing to retire or step away. So, you know, I think it was a collective thing and a lot of, you know, maybe some thoughts, emotion, but it was a collective kind of family approach to how I dealt with that. And then also I reframed it personally in a way of like, this is my first Olympics. And as exciting as it was to hear about it, I didn't lose anything because I'd never been to the Olympics yet. So by it being taken away, I was still in the same position I was prior. So I framed it in a way of, okay, well, let's just hope that second email comes through. And then seeing all 4 of our names, immediately you jump because it's alphabetical order. So you jump and look K for Kallio, and then you're like, okay, Malo, Weiland, Nadine, Crowley for Nadine. And I was like, perfect, all 4 of us are back. So it was nice to experience it twice. It was good news twice for us, and very unique situation.
How long did it take you, Matt, to go back through the list and compare how different it was to the first list?
You know what? I actually intentionally did that early just because I didn't want to say the wrong thing to the wrong person or someone reach out over WhatsApp and someone be familiar. So I did the old school printed out and did the cross reference, and, you know, and then also sent a note to some of the people that I did know that their name was there and it wasn't there. So take that time, because I can only imagine what that would feel like to have an opportunity taken away from you in a pandemic where really you weren't back on the floor and it wasn't based, you know, the decision was made for something out of your control.
So remind me, because Omar Bermudez was one of those people, and I may come back and ask you a question about Omar later on, since it came up. So remind me. I want to talk with you guys about the preparation. You know, we're sitting here in Canada on September 15th, and September 15th is officially the first day of basketball season. We've declared that about 5 minutes ago, and we're getting ourselves back on the floor and ready to get back to something that we all love. And it's going to be a challenge across this country to have 4,000 people out refereeing that haven't done much on the floor in the last 18 months. But for you guys that were at the Olympics, you not only have the FIBA mandated preparation, but you have lots of preparation you have to do the whole time. But concentrating on how FIBA built that mandate up. And they did a couple things besides, and I want you to talk about them, but they also had officials at the men's under-19 tournament in Latvia, the World Cup there, as part of the preparation, and in the Olympic qualifying tournaments. And so, MP, prior to going to Tokyo, you were assigned to the FIBA U19 Men's World Cup in Latvia. Tell us about that tournament, and how was that tournament used as preparation for Tokyo?
Mm-hmm. It was crucial, for sure. And when I saw the schedule of the summer, I was very happy that we would get the chance to be on the floor before the biggest stage. And I counted the month, and it was like 15, 16 months that, like everybody else, that didn't have a chance to be on the floor. Obviously, it's a big challenge to be at the World Cup level, and U19, especially men's, to get your first whistle. So I was pretty anxious about my first whistle, but the thing I try to use a lot is self-talk. And I think it went a long way for me. Just, you know, talking to myself and just telling me, okay, process the play. And I think one of my first call, maybe Nadine could recall, but I think my first call was one of my best call of the game, because it was clip at the end that I processed the whole play down the lane. The guy got fouled. I saw the play done. Okay, then it finished, and I called it. And I was really calm about it. And then when they highlight that little video, I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm back. So obviously the U19 was I think it was the first that the females officials were assigned. And for us, it was a great way just to get our eyes ready for the speed of the game, the physicality of the game. Those U19 athletes are the next big prospect, right? So for us, it was a great way to get ready. And so we traveled to Latvia at the end of June. There was 28 officials from all over the world assigned to that tournament. And we had couple days of pre-competition just to get prepared. And the best thing about it is that we had a game almost every day. So it was an intense tournament. And at the end, for sure, we were prepared for our next big assignment. So, yeah.
And MP, you were assigned the championship game. And as we understand it, the first female assigned to work a FIBA Men's World Cup Championship game. And certainly we were all thrilled for you. Tell us about your experience receiving that assignment and working that game.
Obviously, it's like I mean, to be assigned to any gold medal game or any medal game is an honor, and I was really grateful. For me, it was just an opportunity to continue to grow, to get in a pressure situation in a way that, you know, all games are important, but there's just that little notch, a little bit extra. And the game ended on the last possession. Great partners, great crew. For me, it's just a way also to see that, okay, if I can continue the chain to be positive, that female or male, whatever, if you feel that you had the performance to be at that level and be assigned to those games. Yeah, so I have very, very good memory of the feeling I had on the floor. And I felt confident because my partners, the whole tournament prepared me to be comfortable and just serve the game the best of my abilities. And at the end, I think at the crew, we felt that we did a solid job, and this is the best feeling, that the two teams just forget about the referees. We don't even know who refereed the game. So yeah, no, it's just a great feeling. It's also a great experience to be in those pressure situations, to continue to grow.
Super, thank you. So Nadine, you were also in Latvia, and it was the start of 7 weeks away from home. But as I understand it, it maybe didn't get off to the greatest start. We understand you were initially denied boarding your flights to Latvia, and they weren't going to let you go. What was that all about?
Well, unbeknownst to me, and probably to most of Canada, there's a couple people who sit in a room in Vancouver, and they have the power, the COVID team, they're called, they have the power to deny you a boarding pass if you do not have the forms that they think are relevant to allow you to travel. So so I get to the agent at the counter, and I've got my book of forms because I had my PCR test, I had my 2 vaccines, and what I had done is I had really pressured FIBA to get the LOC to write a letter inviting us to the U19 tournament. Because as you know, it's difficult to travel these days, and anytime you go anywhere, you have to look at the flight advisories or the country advisories as to who they're letting in the country. And Latvia was not letting in Canadians. So anyways, it took about 45 minutes of smooth talking, and I didn't get to tears. That was my last card I was going to play, but didn't get there. But the agent on my end was on my side, and she just basically said, listen to the woman. She's got everything. There's nothing else she can give you besides blood. So, just let her go. And so after 45 minutes, they issued me a boarding pass, and it was like the IKEA commercial, like start the car, and I just ran through security. Yeah.
You get through security, and you get on the plane, and you sit down, and you go, oh crap, I'm not going to be home for 7 weeks.
That hit before sitting on the plane.
So I think, and hope everybody's listening to that and understanding what that level of commitment is that these 4 people made to this summer. And because of the challenges of COVID, when you left for Latvia, MP, when you left for Latvia, and we'll come back to Matt and Michael in a moment, you were really gone for seven weeks. Tell us about that, and what else were you doing for that time?
Well, I left on June 24th, and the purpose for going in advance of the U19 tournament was to be one of the, I guess, monitors, evaluators at what FIBA calls the ROC. It's like the Referee Operations Center. And so what we were doing is watching Matt and Michael and at their respective tournaments. So we were monitoring the 4 Olympic qualifying tournaments. So in Victoria, Serbia, Croatia, and Lithuania. So we all had shifts, and we would sit in a room with a bunch of big screen TVs, and we would evaluate the games. And if there were issues, we would give our boss a heads up and let him know before he got a phone call from somebody. So the great thing is that I didn't have to sit in on the Canadian games because they're at 2 and 4 in the morning. So that was a good thing. But while we were doing that, we were also planning the pre-competition clinic. So there were 3 other referee instructors. So there's 4 of us in total there. And we had to plan out all the sessions for the 3 days for the referee clinic. And so we had to plan out whether those sessions were going to be, because of quarantine, referees maybe testing positive, they would be in their rooms, or were we going to be able to do activities together? Because FIBA really stresses these pre-competition clinics, more so for team building, but to get the referees on the same page. So we planned those out, and then we worked those PCCs for the first 3 days, and then evaluated the tournament.
So it's interesting that you were monitoring the games that Matt and Michael were working. I actually understood you were monitoring the job that I was doing in Serbia at the time. That's what I was told. It wasn't them. It was me that you were supposed to be looking after. So but 7 weeks. So that takes you sort of 3 weeks in Latvia and kind of 3 weeks in Tokyo. What happened in between? You just kind of hang around Riga for a while?
No, we had to leave Riga right away. What happened was that prior to, the tournament, as you know, Canada has rules, quarantine rules. So if you travel, you had to come back at that time and spend 3 days in a hotel, and then the next 11 days in your room somewhere with no contact with anybody. So in conversations with FIBA, we said, listen, we can't come back to Canada because there's only 10 days in between Latvia and Tokyo. So we're going to have to come up with a plan. And so the initial plan was that they were going to send MP and I to Kosovo to work a tournament in Kosovo. And so I think I wrote
Camping style.
Yeah, that's right, in Kosovo. I think I wrote every second day pleading not to send us to Kosovo and suggesting any other place but Kosovo. But our boss is from Helsinki, Finland. So there's 6 of us, the 3 Aussies, a guy from the Philippines, and then MP and I, and our video operator, Fede, from Argentina, who weren't allowed to go back to their home countries. So they put us up in the lap of luxury in Helsinki, Finland, and we basically had a nice 10 days vacation there. I must say the first 4 days, we did 2 hours of prep work. So we watched videos, we did some talking about communication, we did 4 different sessions. And then after that, it sort of, we got a little tired of that and thought we need to have a bit of downtime before we get to Tokyo. So the rest was vacation. So it was wonderful. Paid vacation, which is even better.
A lot of ice cream, huh?
Yes, a lot of ice cream.
But it's dangerous that this meeting is being recorded because, you were working hard to keep you and MP out of Kosovo. But I mean, I was working in the background to make sure you got there. And, the tent that they had arranged for you was apparently a really nice tent. So sorry you didn't get to experience that. But Matt and Michael, and Matt, we'll start with you. You were part of the officiating team at the Olympic qualifying tournament in Split, Croatia, one of 4 simultaneous OQTs. Matt, tell us about the OQT experience, and how did that get you ready for Tokyo?
Yeah, so I'm sorry to rub this in, Mike, because you were over in Serbia. Weiland and I, we were on vacation. Like, we had balconies overlooking the Croatian Sea. The
Matt's
We
working
had
on his
pool
tan.
times. I was working on my tan beside Weiland. You know, we were using a steam room and a sauna. It was actually the most luxurious accommodation that I've ever had in my FIBA career. And so thankful during this time to have that experience. So that made it a lot better. And then for the on the floor experience, something that's very, very rare. And, you know, I got to share an Olympic experience with 4 other Canadians, but Weiland and I worked 2 games, or was it 3? I think it was 2. 2
Yeah,
of
at
the
least
3
2,
we
I
worked
think.
so we worked all potential 3 games that were there. We worked every single day, and then we worked 2 of the 3 together, which is very, very rare to work with a fellow Canadian. And, you know, just from a performance standpoint, Weiland and I work well together. You know, we click off each other. It's been, I don't know how many years since we worked together, and it was like riding a bike. You know, after the first whistle happened, right, we were just in connect and worked well at the cruise, and the intensity of the games too. You know, just you know, I think actually some of those games, particularly when you got down to the semi and then the final there for the qualification, some of that intensity, emotion, game management, game control was more so than in the qualifying rounds of the Olympics, right? Because of just the consequence. One team from your section is going to the Olympics. One of the 4, like, so 4 sites. So the winner of each tournament is going, right? So I think that was really good to, you know, get back into the FIBA realm of refereeing games and having that opportunity. But I think my most memorable thing is being able to share that experience with Weiland, because I started my FIBA journey, you know, very early. My second tournament was with Weiland, where we had the opportunity to work. So it was awesome.
So Michael, yeah, a question. Did the split experience help you prepare for Tokyo?
Matt's Canada basketball issued Speedo was phenomenal. So kudos to that. That definitely got me through it. I needed this tournament big time. What's great, typically throughout our regular seasons in Canada, we have a chance to work games. We obviously had such a large break. So for me, being able to get an opportunity to do the qualifier, this is the 3rd time that I'd done it. Typically in the past, usually the officials that were going to the Olympics wouldn't get this. Fortunately enough, they gave us an opportunity to get there. So I definitely needed it to kind of get back to the fundamentals. I took a different approach to the games this year, not coming in quite, I wouldn't say as serious. I needed to find peace and calm on the court, and getting into an environment like we had in Croatia was awesome. And to share it with Matt, I think you guys all listening kind of know the importance of building that chemistry amongst some of the people in your local association or your conferences. And you never know when you're going to need it, because you get in that game and you're with someone that you can trust and that you know what they're going to do, even if they make a mistake or do something out of the ordinary. You kind of got that natural intuition with them. So sharing that with Matt kind of got me going and fired up. And he's right. Those games were tough, and we were dealing with some difficult coaches, and you're in an environment where there weren't fans. And while we work most of our games here in Canada with not a whole lot of fans, when you get to the level of this intensity and scrutiny, you can hear everything. And it makes you have to really work on your game management skills when you're dealing with the coaches and players, because every little word gets heard on the hot mic or on the court. And I know I had to adjust to that environment, and it got me certainly ready and kind of tuned up to head to Tokyo and feel confidence. Because I think when it comes to officiating, we have to have that confidence heading into a game, a quarter, a play, or a tournament. And getting some reps in these games was essential, because I was coming in pretty cold to the events.
Michael, what did you do after split before you went to Tokyo?
Oh gosh, you know, being locked in our homes or near vicinities, I said I had an opportunity to stay because of some of the conditions that Nadine mentioned, is coming back to Canada. When we get these FIBA flights, oftentimes are sometimes can be in advance. So we had to make a decision back in March of this year when the flights came in to go, hey, well, shoot, what are we going to do if this quarantine's still on? And the costs of flights for FIBA, and they needed some certainty on what we were doing. So I said, to heck with it. I'm only in Croatia maybe once. So I was fortunate enough. My wife was very jealous and very kind to allow me to send her some screenshots from the beach. But I stayed over there for a couple of weeks and then went straight to Tokyo after. And I don't know about everyone on this call, but some mental health breaks were nice, and some normality and being outside and being in an environment that was relatively relaxed and calm made for only a positive to moving into Tokyo, and it was necessary.
Great. You know, Matt, you're probably about the only person I know that has actually maintained their airline frequent flyer status throughout the COVID break. But what did you do after split before heading to Tokyo?
Yeah, so my situation is different. Like I'm a referee full time now, and professional refereeing is FIBA as well, because I think professional refereeing is a mindset, but this is what I do for a living. And so when it comes to travel, when it comes to the hotel nights, when it comes to, you know, doing Monday webinars every week with FIBA, and then hopping onto your weekly conference call, plus breaking down and doing game tape requirements, like this is what I signed up for, and it's my job. So going back to like the whole flight thing, because of the amount that I've flown and being good with the ins and outs and just really reading a ton with CBSA and border control stuff, plus having an American work permit, I was able to really use the FIBA forms and the professional basketball forms when I landed with my full vaccination. And actually, that's when the rules changed. So I delayed my flight by 3 days because, and Mike, you know this all too well, because we had this conversation, and I forget how it worked, but the day that I was supposed to fly, I was going to land 5 hours prior to the hotel quarantine ending for the 3 days and then being in isolation for 14. So even with that, how much I was flying, I was going to have to do that. And I really thought the wording was weird about how they said like this day, and there wasn't really a specific time. So I had actually asked FIBA in advance to reschedule my flight home so I'd avoid the hotel quarantine and be able to be home, which I haven't been home a ton this year at all because of just going back and forth in the COVID restrictions. And I've been in isolation a lot. So I actually got FIBA to reschedule my flight. And as I was checking in for the flight, I was reading the new Canada government guidelines, to which they realized they made an error and it should have said 11:59. So my original flight, I would have been on time. So I stayed an extra 2 days in Croatia, which wasn't the worst case scenario, but 2 days when you can count how many days you've been home in the year is a significant amount of time when you've been away from your fiance and your mom who's sick and family. So it's yeah. So with that said, I was able to come home, and because of the international travel, I was able to get out to the mountains, just basically packed a cooler, and I did do some tenting, Nadine. So, but that was a choice. I wasn't forced to do it.
Really roughing it. I'm sure you were roughing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the purpose of this webinar, but you know, Matt and I did talk about this because I had the same situation coming home, and I actually decided that because mine was a 6-hour window, that I was going to get off the plane in Vancouver and just sit on the ground outside of customs for 6 hours until they changed the rules. But I got fortunate and they changed the rules while I was in the air and managed to go through customs afterwards and avoid the 14-day quarantine. So it is the one time I've sort of had some luck this year, and it was pretty positive. So let's talk about the build up to Tokyo. Nadine, can you give us a little flavor of the bubble life, you know, in Latvia and Tokyo? What did you have to go through? COVID testing? How did you, you know, be able to enter Japan? And what was the daily testing routine like in Japan?
All right. Well, yeah, we were in a bubble both in Latvia and in Tokyo. There's different bubbles. The Latvia bubble was more expandable, I would say. You know, you have the referees who are really trying to stick to the bubble concept, but everybody else around, not so much. But really, you know, as soon as everybody landed, we had to take a PCR test and then stay in our rooms. So eat in our rooms until the next morning when we received the results back, and then people were allowed out. And I have to say that everybody, I believe, passed the initial PCR test that allowed us to have the PCC. And so we had to, because we couldn't go out of the hotel. Okay, we could go out. We could walk along the back alley of the hotel and then go out the front door to the bus. So that was the bubble. So from the hotel to the bus to the gym, from the gym back to the hotel. So we did our PCC in the hotel and split the referees up into groups of 7 and did sessions with them there. We had to get creative with because we only had one big room, and we needed to do some on-court work, and we couldn't get to a gym to do that at the beginning. So some of the stuff we did in the PCC is we taped a gym floor with caution tape in the underground parking lot. And we ran our on-court sessions in the underground sauna, because it was about 150 degrees down there, with the referees in the underground parking lot. So we were really creative in how we did it. We had the gym to ourselves in the hotel, and a big part of your FIBA day is having a workout. And so the referees were able to do that. So that went pretty good. There was only one sort of scare at the tournament, and with respect to COVID, because some of the media guys were quarantined in the middle of COVID because they had tested positive. So that was really the only scare. So we made it through. And then the bubble, and then, you know, we had time off in Helsinki, and we had to do 2 PCR tests, the intrusive PCR tests in Helsinki before we could get on the plane. And then when we got to Tokyo, that was another story. Myself and MP, we spent about 6 hours in the airport, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there are about 12 stations we had to go through, right? Oh, yeah. And so, you know, every station had to check off something. And then, you know, we took another test, and then you had to wait an hour and a half, 2 hours for the results of the test. And then we went through some more stations, and then finally, they sort of, at the end, created our accreditations and let us into the country, because our accreditations were like our passport in and out of Tokyo. So when they took it away, that means, you know, you were leaving Tokyo pretty fast, but nobody got theirs taken away. But bubble life in Tokyo, it was a bit more strict than it was in Riga. Every morning we had to take a saliva test, and before we brushed our teeth or ate, and so we had to upload that on the app, and we had to upload our temperature on the app, and so that was every day. You know, weren't really allowed to go anywhere. They had pseudo security people sitting at the front and sort of monitoring our whereabouts and our behavior. I know some referees were able to work that to their advantage, but for the most part, the bubble was pretty tight. Anybody else can add anything they want on the bubble, but that's for us. And you know, and I guess I want to say something about the bubble, is that, you know, I really respect the referees for, you know, not making a scene about it, or, you know, kicking up a storm. But, you know, for this tournament, for me, and this is my perception, I think it was helpful. I think it was kind of, when you took a positive spin on it and thought about the fact that it's really important that everybody, because we need all bodies, that everybody stays healthy. I think people bought into that. And what it also did is I think it added to the camaraderie. The referees only worked every 2 or 3 days, but if there wasn't a bubble, people would have been going off to all sorts of venues, and we wouldn't have had as much time together as we did during this tournament. A lot of the referees hung out in the referees lounge or at the gym or at the hotel. Maybe they hung out more in the lounge because of the washer dryer. I don't know what it was, but still they were together, which really helped with, FIBA's theme about teamwork. Because I see that as something building, and it was good for me to be able to spend more time with the referees, not in my referee instructor role, but just as one of the gang in the lounge, hanging out. So that's my perception.
At these FIBA tournaments, the pre-competition clinic, and MP, you touched on the pre-competition clinic earlier. It's a really important activity. And realistically, your PCC was in Latvia this year, where Michael and Matt sort of had their PCC and split. But MP, tell us the importance of these pre-competition clinics. What do they do for the crew?
I actually has become a tradition and a must that we need to prepare for the tournament. All the officials come from all parts of the world. As we get to many tournaments, we get to know most people, but there's still people that we didn't have a chance to connect. So obviously we just touch on teamwork. I think this is one of the biggest aspect of how to perform on the floor as a crew. So we use the PCC for many things. So obviously there's workshops, and just to name a few, we had a couple workshop on IoT, 3PO, communication, fake workshop, on sportsmanlike foul workshop. And there was a big emphasis on mental preparation this year, and I think it was needed. And we had some relaxation session. We had a psychologist that's with us, a sports psychologist that's with us, and giving us a little edge that we didn't maybe had before. And obviously, there's also a fitness part of it. There's always that famous Yoyo Test or beep test that we need to do. This year was a little bit different because of this situation. We had to run it at home and send a video of our test, and to make sure that we were ready for the competition. And at the end, it's just to get, it's a valuable time to get people together, to connect, build relationship, and so we can be stronger, better on the floor. And it really does the big difference. And Tokyo was a little bit different because we didn't have that time, but most people did the PCC just a couple of weeks prior to this. So it was just fine tuning, just a little couple of stuff that we needed just to get ready. But otherwise, those 2 days, like I personally, I really like those 2 days because it makes you be back on the same level of everybody and make sure that you're not missing anything. So, and they're long days, but when they're done, you're like, okay, I'm just ready to be back on the floor. Like, yeah, okay, we're ready to go. So,
Michael, Matt, effectively your PCC was in split, but the 4 Olympic qualifying sites were sort of connected during the PCCs. Michael, how did the 4 sites connect? How did a group of officials in 4 different sites get together for that?
Man, I'm feeling like the old guy now, and I am the old guy out of this group in terms of the referees, because when I first started with FIBA, my gosh, the technology has come a long, long way. So obviously with the Zoom factor, we were able to organize our days and connect between the 4 sites, which was really cool and a good opportunity. But for me, how I prepare for a tournament, or how I best prepare for a season, so even going into a season back here at home, is getting video and watching video. I have to prime the muscle memory, and I need to see clips and plays. So what's great about the PCC for me is it brings us an opportunity as a group to get on the same page from a consistency standpoint, but like just see plays and retrain my brain that when I go into a tournament, I go, I got this. I've seen this play before. And either when it's from a video or it's kind of replaying those plays from your career or your experience, regardless of the level. So I think it's great, but again, we're like the athletes in many ways. We want to get out and play. We want to ref. So you do get a little antsy sitting in a room for 7 or 8 hours, because I think as adult learners, it's a little tricky. But they really do a fantastic job, and it is a priority now. So it's something that I think we can all find a way to incorporate into the start of our seasons, and I highly encourage everyone to do that.
Thank you. Matt, last question before we actually talk about the Olympics. How do the PCCs, the pre-competition clinics, how important are they for team building?
Hey, sorry, I think my internet just cut out there for a second. Mike, can you repeat the question?
Sure. How important are the PCCs for team building?
Well, that's absolutely essential. I think that's our number one thing, that camaraderie that you build, that trust that you build within the room, within the teammates, within the team. I also like, and I think this is something very real, that regardless of working, G League or WNBA games and coming back to FIBA, which is like, FIBA is my go-to. If we want to talk about refereeing, if I want to default, I can go to FIBA like that. Going the other way when I go back is the hardest thing for me, because this is what I learned. I learned FIBA, I learned mechanics and everything like that. But I think one of the biggest things on the team building, and piggybacking on what Weiland was saying about, being in the room and going through and watching the video, is leaning on those really experienced referees that have been in the room. You had Jorge Vasquez from Puerto Rico that's been to 2 Olympics, I believe. You have Adamir, who's done however many finals in the BCL over in Europe. You have Eddie from France, who's, it was his very last tournament, and we got to celebrate that with him. But when you have a play now and you're able to fine tune what's a C1 versus a C2 criteria on an unsportsmanlike, and find out what that calibration is on play calling, I think that really sets the stage. And the reason I bring that up, and I kind of share from going between league to league, as Canadians, we're far too nice with the unsportsmanlike foul rules. So it doesn't even matter that I work different leagues. I think even if I just worked a U Sport or a CCAA game, or even a high school game in Canada, having those clinics is so essential to get us all on the same page, because it's bigger than what you do in your game. Yes, you want to be collectively good as a crew, but you need your partners in the next game and the next game and that entire tournament to be on the same page. Because as soon as someone does something that's out of the realm and it doesn't fit, or it's not accepted, or it's not right based on rule or play calling calibration on a sportsmanlike rule, it puts pressure on everybody. So that's where I think like the team building part, and also just getting people on the same page, that's where you earn that trust, because we're all high level thinkers too. So you don't just say, okay, well, that's an unsportsmanlike foul C2. Like, why is that a C2? Like, help guide me here on what the rationale is, so I can get on the same page and make sure that I'm calling that the same way in 2 days when we're on the floor together.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. And some really good messages there as we prepare for a season and are probably going to struggle with consistency across the country when we've had 18 months without games. And I hope everybody takes that message to heart. Let's talk about the Olympics, and let's talk about it in a couple of different ways. Maybe the preliminary rounds and the pool play. Matt, 2 questions for you. Tell us about the daily assignment process. How did you receive the assignments, and are there restrictions that people face at the Olympics?
Yeah, so we receive, so through the FIBA app that everyone has access to now as a general account, but we had a special login for Tokyo where there's a Tokyo folder, and you get a notification on your phone. So we have this modern, very efficient, effective app. I receive my assignments by text message usually, because my crew would always read that notification before I would. And there'd be a new WhatsApp group. It'd be, doesn't even matter what the teams are, but whatever team versus whatever, and the date. So that, oh, I'm working tomorrow. Let's see where I'm working. Am I standby or am I actually on the court? And I say that jokingly because it's part of the fun of it. It's just like, oh, I'm working tomorrow. and also too, something with FIBA that I think is probably, I don't know if it was stress early on in my career, because I like to know, like I know what my routine is for a game. Those assignments could be coming out midnight. If there was something really weird that happened the day before, especially around playoff time, it could be 2 a.m. before you know that you're going to be working the next day. Tokyo was a little bit more efficient that way, getting them out, but it was late evening. And then also there's just neutrality factors. Obviously, all of us we stayed away from Canada. I work full time in the USA, so I'm not able to referee USA games on both the men and women's side. So that's a reality for everybody. It's not just us as Canadians. Like, so Omar from Mexico works in the G League now, so he was away from Mexico and USA. You had the Puerto Rican referees that can't do USA. I believe there was one referee that had 3 different nationality, or like 3 different passports, so they were restricted in their assignments as well. So that all this is bigger than just performance. It's performance, it's crew chemistry, and then there's also a neutrality component, even within that bracket or within that pool of play, where games of consequence, they really just want to protect you.
Thanks, Matt. One more quick question before we give you a little bit of a break and go to the others. You worked the first game of the Olympic tournament. What was that like, having the first toss of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics?
It was definitely very cool. I will be very forward. I didn't think about it. I didn't want to think about it. I just wanted to think about it as a game of basketball and put that ball up and make sure our first call as a crew was good. Like you always want to think about the first call, but you're thinking long-term too. You have a responsibility and accountability and just a self-pride, where you just want to make sure everything goes smooth for that very first game. Because we've all been to tournaments where that first game's sometimes it's out of our control. So everything about that first game was setting the standard, game management, game control, benches, but it was definitely an honor. A little bit eerie being in that big of an arena with no fans on a first game of the Olympics. But when you get to look across and see united by emotion on the table, and you see those Olympic rings, it sets in.
Great. Michael, sort of the same basic theme, but tell us a little bit, how did pool play go for you? Anything memorable, anything stand out, and kind of how many games did you kind of work in pool play?
Yeah, I want to talk. I'm curious if MP and Matt are the same way as me. I still get nervous, by the way, when those nominations come out. I get more nervous for when the app says there's nominations, and it takes me back to like working the high school tournaments or now an email where you're like, so that doesn't change. I find that so curious that regardless of the tournament and regardless of the event and the experience, there is that moment that we still kind of like, I'm nervous what this is going to say, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. But when it comes to tournaments, kind of now in my experience, what I have learned, especially the pool play, is you just go out and ref the game. You don't think about too much in terms of who you're working with, or get into the mix of overanalyzing the types of games that you're getting. I think we as referees are kind of a little guilty of that, and I encourage as many people who want to continue on in their career and have success this season, don't worry about the games that you're getting. So the matchups could be great the first day, for me, I mean, my most memorable moment was I was fortunate enough to get USA and France in the first game. So, it's the one thing that I did do this time that was a little different, especially being in that Olympic environment, I knew there was a lot more to the event. So just kind of scrolling online, which I rarely would ever do to look up basketball games. I'm like, oh, this game, they're actually talking about it on ESPN. And I'm like, I'm in this game. And that actually was almost more freeing because I wanted to have fun with it. And that was kind of my whole approach to this tournament was I'm going to go and enjoy this. It's been a tough year of not refereeing and having kind of life go upside down a little bit in many ways, and I'm sure we can all share. So I'm like, I'm going to go out and enjoy this. And that kind of free feeling in the most memorable for me certainly was that US-France game, because the one thing that I learned is life and games are about timing. And sometimes in life, when you think you're at the top, life will come back and show you you're not quite. So I've had a lot of those experiences where maybe the timing wasn't right in a tournament in terms of not so much performance, but just how the games kind of flow through the tournament. But this game was great. I had some awesome partners. We had some tough plays. I had to call everything. Mike, I had like over and back, 3 in the key, carry ball, 6 out of bounds, technical. It was just one of those like, but they just kind of, I was in the right headspace. And I think for me personally, I don't know, we can get into this now, but I needed the preparation that I started 7 or 8 years ago to be able to work even that caliber of game at the Olympics and any of the games at the Olympics. And I think the preparation of getting into meditation and getting into yoga, and I'm a bit of a woo-woo guy now, so I'm a little different than most in many ways, I suppose. But having that and then being able to flow in a high-profile game and have some success, and to counter back to what Matt said, that first game of the tournament, whether it's for the entire group of officials or you as an official, it does set the tone, and it can really end a tournament for someone, either emotionally, mentally, or physically if they're not prepared, or you catapult amongst your crews. And we want everyone to catapult. And what was great is I think everyone did do a great job, especially those first few days, and did set the tone. So it got that trust with the players and coaches that I think we're all searching for. And once you've got that, and once you can put them in your hand a little bit, and build that rapport over a tournament, it's amazing how less we have to deal with when it comes to game control, when it comes to player control. So getting to have Durant or any of the US players say mean things to me and use bad words, how can that go wrong? At least I got that to come from.
Thank you. Well, maybe we'll check on Durant and bad words with another question. And this is an unfair question for you, MP. And while I said that September 15th was Return to Basketball Day in Canada, it's also the last time we're going to ask women about working men's games. Because
Thank you.
Exactly the way it should be, and it's what we're doing today. But there's still a bit of a novelty for some people. And you worked a pool game involving U.S. men, and I think they played Czechoslovakia. What was that experience like for you? Anything memorable from that or elsewhere in the pool play?
I will, I don't know how the expression is in English, but I will guinea pig on what you just said. For me, it was just another basketball game. Obviously, it's a little striking that, you referee the athletes or the coaches that you see on TV. And I think this is one of the things I'm most proud of, how I felt, how comfortable I felt, how I felt ready. But as soon as you step on the floor, it's 5-on-5, the hoops are the same height. Obviously there's many stuff to think about, but for me, just having that opportunity to challenge myself, to add that level, to referee the highest level in the world and a men's game, it was just a blessing. I wish there's going to be more and more. And like you said, that there's no difference between men and women. If we can we have the competency to be there. We see each of us as a referee, not a female or male. So no, but I was excited. And at the end of the game, we felt good. We felt really good as a crew. And I think that was the best feeling. I have a couple pictures with Kevin Durant and all those great players in the NBA and even Czech Republic. There was a couple, they're all great, but I'm a basketball director in my high school. And I can't lie that a lot of my athletes, they were pretty amazed that I got to shake Greg Popovich's hand or just that Draymond Green was not really happy about one of my 2 calls, so they're psyched about this. So it's a great way to get people inspired, I think. And if I can do this and make a difference, that's all I can ask for.
I didn't know you were actually a member of the Draymond Green Doesn't Like Me as a Referee Club, but it's a growing membership. So
MP's also a meme.
yeah,
She's got a meme?
Yeah.
I'm famous,
Oh
yeah.
man, we got to get
Unfortunately.
that meme out. We got to
Yeah.
get that meme out.
I'm not
We'll
sure
have
if
to-
it's for the good there.
You got to share it, MP. I haven't seen it. That's coming.
That's
That's
your,
coming through on email. Action item number 1.
That's your mission. Just find me on Bleacher Report or
Diana
anywhere.
Taurasi. Email,
Mhm.
just Google
Okay.
Diana Taurasi in Japan.
Yeah, sure. Everybody on the call know what play we're talking about. So
do me a favor, folks. Let's wait until we get a little further into the call.
mhm.
Nadine, these other 3, I mean, they might have had a great Olympics, but they got a rest day every now and then. They might work at most 1 game, and they might get a rest day here or there. And you never had a day off.
Nope.
Tell us about your days in Tokyo. I mean, what did you do? What's your role as a referee instructor? And did you ever get any sleep?
Well, it's I called it Groundhog Day every day. It's like the same. I didn't get a lot of sleep. Between the hours of about 2 and 6:30, I slept. It was busy, but you know what? It was a lot of fun. 19 days of go, 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 go. It was a lot of fun. What I do is, get up at 6:30 in the morning, be on the bus, 8 o'clock. That bus was leaving right at 8. And most days I was at the gym from 8 till we left at around 11:30 at night. There was 2 referee instructors, and so my partner and I would either would have 2 games a day. And so what we were able to do is talk to our boss to say, listen, we need to mix this up a bit because it can't be the same every day, and we also need to get our workouts in. So he mixed up the games to allow us time to have the workouts. But you'd go do the 10 o'clock game, do your post game afterwards, and then you'd go and write the report. And then it was time for your next game. And if we're lucky, we'd get to eat at the food trucks for lunch and dinner when we remembered and had time. But yeah, that was the day, and it was similar. So if we didn't have the first 2 games in the morning, we could go for a workout in the morning and then go on the later bus to the games. If we had the last game of the day, you were doing your post game at the hotel in the lobby at around 11:30 midnight, and then go back to your room. Well, you're wired, so you can't sleep, so I might as well write my report. Or also, FaceTime home because of the 13-hour time change. So did a lot of that. And in between, I count myself as very fortunate to be one of the referee instructors, because I learned so much. And watching these games, having a front row seat to these games, is just fantastic. I was also in the Draymond Green non-fan club too, because he'd be sitting behind me yelling obscenities at you guys, and I'd be like, really? And so we got into it a bit, but it was great in between games to be able to sit in the referee instructor room with my boss, Carl Youngebrand, the head of basketball refereeing in the world, and to watch a game with him and to learn about how he sees the game, to break down plays with him, but also to be able to do my post-game feedback sessions with him present, which was huge. I think for me, it was, even though 19 days of go, 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 very little sleep, they were the best 19 days of my basketball career that I've had. They were fantastic. I wouldn't trade in a minute, because of who I got to work with, what I got to observe, just experiencing that moment, but also what I got to learn about myself. And I think there was so much in that 19 days, but those 7 weeks, I came home a different person. And I learned a lot about my job. And I hope that, what I was giving the referees in post game, because I did, part of my PCC, my pre-tournament preparation, was to really focus on learning more about providing effective feedback. And so I did a lot of studying and a lot of, talking to colleagues around, how they do it, what, and the U19 was a great, that was my training ground to start to work on that. But also to learn that at the U19 and the Olympics, it's 2 different types of feedback and 2 different types of approaches. And that I needed to, do a lot of work in order to provide relevance to the referees at the Olympic level. Because, when Michael talks about being nervous about the assignments and stuff, I'm nervous too, because I'm working with the best referees in the world. And, what do I have to give them? They're there because they're awesome. So my role isn't about teaching, my role is support, and just asking simple questions like, what do you need to talk about? What's important for you? And it's support after the games, but it's also support in between, my role, not just the evaluator and feedback person, but I was the gopher. I did a lot of other things, but I was also there to support the referees in whatever they were going through, because life still goes on. Life still continues when you're at these tournaments. And even though you're refereeing, there's lots of things that happen to us that have an impact on us every day. So, so there's a lot that goes into that role, and I'm very thankful and grateful to have held that role. And because it's a new role, right? It's a new role having referee instructors at these tournaments. So.
Thanks, Nadine. So, folks, we got 140 of us on this call, and really this is a summer of success for Canadian basketball referees. What we don't have as part of this panel today is at the Paralympics, the wheelchair basketball competition, Alex Lapointe from Quebec worked the women's gold medal game there, and Sebastian Gauthier worked the men's gold medal game there. And I think really we need to take the time to acknowledge them. Rike put out a whistle blast today, and there's some information at the back of the that whistle blast today, which is great. An article by Sergio Giordano, who was there as a referee instructor for that. And we need to pause for a minute and congratulate those people. They had a great summer. For the 3 of our panelists that were on the floor, Michael, let's begin with you. The Olympic schedule was odd in that the men's gold medal assignment came out first. It was, a little bit of a different assignment. You talk about being nervous when, the little ding comes and it tells you there's something in the FIBA IREF app that you're supposed to go look at. What was it like opening that notification and seeing your name on the crew? And what was it like being on the floor for the biggest game of the year?
Yeah, it was a little different in how it all went down. So a little kind of insider on it. What happened was, because as Matt described, the assignments kind of came out late afternoon typically. But because of the structure, as you mentioned, Mike, they had the men's gold medal, the women's bronze, and then the men's bronze that night. So they couldn't release the nomination. So I was really happy. I had a great opportunity in the semifinals. Game went smooth, no issues. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be working anymore. And quite honestly, I was satisfied. It's wasn't the games, it's just how I felt and how, the results that we got. So anyways, I'm at breakfast the day before, and Misha, the other referee instructor, kind of came up and said, "Hey, Carl would like to meet with you and these other 3 guys in about 15 minutes. And I'm like, oh boy. And he knew something was up. And that was nervous. That was nervous because I was at the point of satisfaction that I'm going to be in the game, but also remembering in FIBA, we have the standby official. So I was at the World Cup in China. I also got the nomination to be the standby in the semifinal. So while that's a nice treat, I think we've all been in the standby role, and it can be a little frustrating, I would say. So I'm now going to a meeting in 15 minutes with the head of refereeing, and I got 3 of my buddies, all great guys, all I'm rooting for, truthfully, all well-deserving of being in that room. And I'm going, it could happen, but I'm like, nah, Mike, you're this, it's okay. You did well. The standby is good. You get a little more TV time. If they go to replay, this will be all right. But yeah, we sat down and Carl just went through and said, my partner would be the standby, a gentleman from Spain. And I just kind of sat there and kind of like the fuzzy background going on in the Zoom calls that we all have in our background. That's kind of that feeling of that surreal, like, oh, this has happened. And I think for me, it was actually, that was the best moment because I could breathe. And I'll get emotional thinking about it, but you know, all of us on this call have worked so hard in, whether it's in the beginning of your career or if you're later in your career, of trying to achieve a dream or a goal in this crazy business where we're constantly at odds or constantly into the next game or the next tournament and rarely recognized outside of our own group, amongst friends and family, and people go, why are you doing these games? And getting that announcement and being like, I'm in this game, was just the biggest relief I've ever had. And I think it was me setting the intention and kind of putting that out there that it was possible and having the confidence. And then from then it was, honestly, it was super chill. We had an opportunity to do our day game that night and get that kind of workman stuff out of the way to prepare us. It's serious, you have a coffee. And then the next day, it just led right into the next day.
And your partners on the game were Locatelli and Zarapovic, is that right?
Yes. And, you know, anyone on this call, including myself, including my MP and Nadine and Matt, think you're having a rough week or you have challenges, or you get distracted in basketball or at a tournament. Guilherme Locatelli from Brazil was having triplets. 2 days earlier they arrived. So he was now a father of 4 all of a sudden, and then got the final game. So can you imagine what's going on in his life and his mind? And then he's got to kind of readjust and settle. So, you know, our approach before the game, along with Adamir, was just let's relax. You put on some good music. We actually, truth be told, in the locker room, we're looking at our Spanish friend had an app, the silly app that makes you look like you're either 80 or long hair or a woman or a man in the reverse. So we were looking at our partners and we just kept the flow of just the gravity of it just aside, because as MP said earlier, you go out and you ref the game. Not having a crowd there definitely made for a less intense environment than I think it would have. But pretty special moment for me personally, and then to share it with a lot of the people who've been so supportive to me was a really special moment to let those people know and thank them and have them supporting not only me but Matt in his game and MP in hers.
Thanks, Michael. And folks, we're about.
Sorry, Thompson, just like, that's very heartfelt and everything, but just put a little reality to this. Like, I'm not aging well. So I'm just going to put this in here. So this is the app here. So, you know,
this is what I'm talking about.
These are the memories. And like, Nadine, I saw you laughing as soon as you started talking about it, because we had so much fun with that stupid app. So now all of our faces are all over somewhere, wherever that app goes.
Yeah, and they think we're crazy because now they're walking past the locker room and they're like, why are the referees having so much fun? This is supposed to be a professional job. But I mean, you got to loosen up and you got to have some outlet for this stuff, because the stress can get to you, the overthinking can get to you. So any release when it comes to laughter is good medicine.
All right. You know, we're about 10 minutes away from an opportunity for some questions if people want to put anything in the chat. A couple questions left, but I will note for all of my friends on this call that are excellent fathers, nobody in the world beyond Locatelli deserves to have triplets more. He can probably handle it better than anybody else. So Matt, you followed up with the men's bronze medal game, special assignment, one partner from the Americas, really great crew. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it was an honor and a phenomenal experience, and like it just everything's so rewarding about the tournament. And the bronze medal game, only one's going home with the medal. And we had two teams that were willing to put anything into the tournament. So anything could happen. So, the gold medal game's over. So usually after the gold medal game, the tournament's over. And then you have the bronze, which is actually the last game. And you're on game management, game control, game of the tournament where anything can go sideways with personalities and, just off-ball officiating, rebounding action. You have to be on the entire game, and the crew was phenomenal. I think I couldn't have been put with a better crew. Johan from France, and then Roberto from Puerto Rico. We worked together multiple games, all of us separately, but that was the first time we came together as three. And we had the chance to work over at China at the World Cup separately as well. But it just everything about it was good. And something that Nadine said that like really resonated with me, to kind of like just bring it full circle about the games. 19 days, and she was working every single day. And she said, but on the flip side, like, yeah, I'm only getting 5-6 hours of sleep, but it was completely worth it. Players play a season. They have playing careers 10 to 15 years. As referees, we have our career. And the amount of work that you put in over time and what you're trying to achieve over time, you're going to have ups and downs, but it's a process. And players are at the tournament and within a game are going to play at pace. But at the end of the day, when you're in a gold medal or bronze medal game and you've been playing at pace all season, or you've been representing your country for an entire build up to the Olympics, if you don't have gas in the tank for that last 2 minutes, you're not going to win. And that's an athlete attitude. But we have that as referees. We had gas in the tank. Like, it would be a disservice, and Nadine didn't do this, and none of us did when we were tired or when we had stuff going on at home where we're just like, man, this is tough. But we put in all that time and effort to get here, but we had gas in the tank. And it goes back to just being a referee and being a professional referee and being at the top of our game. And compliments to you, MP, for saying what you did, because MP's mindset of just going into the game and just refereeing the game of basketball, that's why she's at the level that she's at, and she represents this country so well and herself so well, and she's going to continue to do better things, because we all have that mindset. Everybody on this call right now has had an opportunity, and we all are a little bit of the same person, a little bit crazy, a little bit able to just dial in and focus, and we all have a motor. We're like, no, this last 2 minutes, we have it. You can't take anything away from us in this moment, and that was the bronze medal game for me.
Thanks, Matt. So, Michael told us a little bit about the schedule, the men's gold medal game, the men's bronze medal game, and then the women's bronze medal game. And so that left one game. Like this whole build up to the Olympics that was a whole year longer than it normally is. And I was in Hungary, and I couldn't sleep waiting to see the assignments released for the women's gold medal game. MP, how about you? Did you get any sleep waiting?
It's actually a funny feeling. Like you said, it was the last game on the last day, the only game. So we had to wait a little bit, like for the day to end. And a little bit like Mike, our head official, got us in a little meeting. So we get in a little meeting, and there's 4 of us, and we look over each other and say, okay, we don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign, because we don't know if, what news they're going to tell us. And it seems like it was normal stuff. So like, okay, you're going to be standby, CC, U1, U2. And actually it was one of the biggest news, but it was just like normal stuff. It seems like normal stuff, but then we get out of the room, then this is where, okay, we get a hug and we get really excited and we get to be more ourselves. So we had the news in person and we had to keep the news confidential until it was official. So that was a little weird feeling that, but nobody knows. Then you cannot share it until it's official. And for me, it was just like the cherry on the cake, for sure, because I felt like I had a great opportunity to do a quarterfinal, the semifinal. We had a heck of a game between France and Japan. And Japan had such a great tournament. And actually, I had the first game of France and Japan. And Japan kind of surprisingly won the first game, but after they had a really great tournament. So it was not surprising at all at the end. And the crew, like we felt like, okay, no regrets. So for me to have that great news, to be on the floor for one last time, and obviously at the biggest stage with great two teams and great partners, I couldn't ask for better. So, and in this little video from the opening that we had the photos and video, you could see a time-lapse video of our gold medal game. So it was actually a GoPro that my partner Manuel from Italy has installed on the table and just follow us. And it goes so quickly. So in 2.5 minutes, I can see the whole game. I see how we enter the gym and how like there's almost nobody in the stands. And there's a perfect like view of how we handle the subs, how we report the foul. So those little souvenirs of video is very memorable. And those are great souvenirs that I will cherish for a long time for sure.
Thank you. So I actually don't see any specific questions in the chat unless you're getting some through, Rike, but for the four of you, Nadine, MP, Matt, and Michael, thank you very much for this evening. We do have a question for each of you to wrap up. Certainly we at, whether it's Canada Basketball, CBOC, and personally, very proud of what you've accomplished. And congratulations to each of the four of you. And I hope you're comfortable us taking some time to celebrate your success, because it's been absolutely fabulous and wonderful. And as we return to basketball, we couldn't have a better setup to take us going forward. So congratulations. MP, there is a question that's come through for you. It says, for the running test that you did at home, oops, sorry, it flashed off. I have to go back and open it again. For the running test that you did at home, what was the minimum level that was required in order to be accepted? And what level were you able to get to? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So there's actually two tests that we do. Is either the beep test or the Yoyo Test. So at the World Cup level, it's the Yoyo Test, which is a little bit different with a little 10-second pause, but obviously it goes faster as you go along. So it's actually, you go until you're able to. So the Yoyo Test, there's a standard for the women, which is 23 there and back. And for the men's, it's 30. So I actually did, I don't know, like, I don't remember by heart, but like 37 or 38. And it's actually, what?
Wow, 38?
Yeah, just a way to, get trained and do your cardio. And the hardest part was to be by myself. And that day was so hot. It was the last day I could do it. And you put the video and I put it on a way that you could see the whole gym. And I'm lucky enough that I'm a physical education teacher, so I have access to a gym. So I know that other referees had like some trouble making it, but you're by yourself, you're trying to run to the beep and you need to like be so focused and make it. So when you have all people on the line with you, it's so much easier. They give you a little push, there's the extra push that can help you. But yeah, this is what we had to do, and in a way it was positive, but in a way we were missing that teamwork bonding that we used to do every time before the tournament. So hopefully I answered the question.
We do have one in the chat, but I'm going to ask Mike and Mike and Matt, but I'll start with Matt to do a little bit of a wrap up for us before we go to that question. Matt, really no rest for you. You were back quickly to the NBA Summer League and then the WNBA. Have you had time at all to celebrate your success?
To be honest, no. And I think probably the most real thing about the Olympics for me was the flood of the emotions, because I was the last flight out on the next day. So I was the last flight out. So that loneliness and that ability, like there is no one. I mean, I was literally the last person. So to have, and it trickled down from maybe there was only 6 people within that last 12 hours of my Olympic experience before I left for the airport. I had the opportunity to say goodbye to everybody on this call, which was important and, you know, was a good experience. But it's a weird thing, because the happy tears that just flooded when I got to my room and you just got to celebrate. And so, yeah, maybe I did feel it, but then it is also just reframing and getting back on track, because it was to the next tournament. And, you know, we all have goals as referees, and that's something I'm still learning and I don't do very well. Particularly in this year, the amount of isolation is something I've learned about myself, where I need to celebrate more and not learn to turn it off. So it's a very good question. I'm glad I kept it together as well as I did, because this is 2% of what happened in Tokyo when everyone left, where for an hour, you just realized how special it was. But you think of, it wasn't so much the tournament, it was everything leading up, all the sacrifice you made for being away at family. This is 3 years in a row that I haven't had an off season. My off season has been COVID. So, you know, our times of isolation, of being home when everyone was locked down, that was the only time. It was a great blessing to be with my fiance. That was the most time we ever spent together as a couple in 6 years of being together. Luckily, we still get along, and we actually learn more, and we've become even better for it, to learn that everything that we are doing is phenomenal. And she's my biggest supporter. But doing nonstop basketball, I still need to celebrate, and I think we are tonight. I think really it resonates tonight.
Thanks, Matt. Just to be clear, there actually is no off season. So don't expect one. Michael, I think it's true that you've now been to 2 men's world championships, and I'm talking about open men's world championships, and an Olympic gold medal game on your resume. Wow. Your closing thoughts for us tonight?
Oh man, lots. Yeah, it's certainly emotional. I'm not afraid to admit me and Matt may have shed a few tears a few nights in over a beer or not. So I think this is a big opportunity for all of us. It's been really, I reiterate how hard this has been for 18 months, and I've yet to see many people actually congratulate each other, their family members, their colleagues, that for getting through this and dealing with the isolation of it all. I'm really proud of basketball in Canada and my colleagues and all the people on this call and the people that we've come across. I'll speak for Matt and MP, and I'm sure both you, Mike and Nadine, on your referee career. This started doing junior high basketball in Calgary in a church. And with great mentoring and people to help me along the way, and also perseverance and hard work, it's incredible to think what is possible. And us Canadians have an amazing opportunity ahead of us to keep this going, for more and more people to share in these opportunities. We've trailblazed a way to the US, and I'm hoping that happens soon for one of us. And what we've seen on FIBA is we're getting a lot of respect, and it's because we're great people and we do the right thing and we work hard and care about each other. And it's a divisive time right now, and I'm not happy about it. But we need to use our colleagues and this little community that I think we've probably been missing more than we thought we knew, not being around each other. And I really encourage you guys this season to go out and set a goal and try to achieve it, but more importantly, have fun and get back to camaraderie, enjoying the craft, but also the people you're with, because I don't remember, Mike, all the games from the Olympics. I already forget, I move on, but I remember hanging out in the hotel room, ordering sushi with 5 other refs and watching the 100-meter final, which is the best we could get. Unfortunately, we couldn't get in the arena, but it is really those shared moments that I'm going to remember with people that had a lot of ups and downs in this last month. And I'm just really proud of Matt and MP and everyone that took the time to join us tonight. And I want you to just go out and do what's best for you this season, work hard and have a lot of fun and have some goals and achieve it. You can do it.
Thanks, Mike. There is a couple of questions in the chat, but we're actually going to save them and answer them in another format soon. I promise you. MP, 2 major championship games in the same summer. Have you had time to celebrate, or have you been locked away?
I think I will pass on that information, but it's a little bit surreal for sure. And I listened to Matt, Mike, and Nadine talking about the experience. I just want to go back. I just want to go back and live it again for sure. I don't want to rewrite the story. I just want to, be there again. And I've ice cream with Nadine in Finland. But for me, the one of the biggest moments is every game. This is something that in FIBA, we have is that we have the anthem, right? The national anthem. And it was a time for me to reflect, 2 minutes times 2, what 5 minutes each, that just to reflect on the journey. And I don't know, what is it like, Michael and Matt, and we're so emotional tonight, right? I don't know why, but I closed my eyes and I could see like all the people, from the start and from home, from family, colleagues, that influence, like gave me that opportunity and believed in me. So, and I had, it was just like a precious time for me to, in a way, thank them. And obviously I reached out to many people that, influence and gave me that chance. And I think I'm gonna stop here because otherwise but no, I don't even know if I answered the question, but but no, celebrate. There's so many ways to celebrate, but it's just what has been striking me is how people got inspired, and we're so much like in need of positive vibe right now in the last couple months. From students, from the mother of my good friend, and people turn on the TV, they never watched basketball, but because they knew that girl from Quebec or Montreal that was probably at the Olympics, so it opened the door to the horizon to many people. And so for me, it's the best way to celebrate it and to share it. So sorry.
No, that's
Thank you.
that's fabulous. One more question for Nadine. Then we're going to open the floor for John McFarland for about a minute or two, and then we'll do our wrap up. So Nadine, you're the leader of this crew. In the summer, you wrote evaluation after evaluation after evaluation, game report after game report. What's your message for our Canadian officials?
Keep doing what you're doing. This is the first Olympics that you've had so many individuals represent Canada. And obviously there's something great that's happening over here in Canada. And, I piggyback on what everybody else has said, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice. And you know, the interesting thing we didn't talk about with the PCC is that we always go back to basics. You know, the PCC, when we're doing the on-court work, it's basic. How to run up the court, how to stop on the end line, how to stop and make a call properly, how to signal properly. It's about basic fundamentals. And as referees, no matter what level you're at, it's always about going back to those basic fundamentals to continue to master them. And I think, you know, we've been off for 15 months or so. It's a good time to get back there and to start that. And it doesn't matter what level you're at, you could always work that. But, you know, achieving your dream comes with sacrifice. And everybody here has talked about the sacrifices they've made. We've all made sacrifices, but, and you learn from them. You learn what I wouldn't do again, but also, you know, you learn what you would do differently. And you know, everybody has their own story and has you know, had their own path. But, you know, I think the takeaway for me is, you know, continue to work hard on the basic fundamentals. And I totally agree with what Matt was talking about and Michael was talking about, and P, is that it's about the teamwork. It's about being good people. You know, the bottom line to all this refereeing is you can't have good teamwork if you're not, you know, a good person. If you're only there for yourself. It's about, you know, giving back to the game, about being humble. It's about, you know, having other interests in life outside of just basketball to be more well-rounded person. But you know, it was an unbelievable time. I'm like you, MP. I'd love to go back and experience all that again, but it'll probably be different. So I just cherish, the ball, the the gold medal ball, yes, and cherish the times that I had. And you know, I am so proud of Michael, Matthew, and MP. There are a lot of tears during the tournament. Just watching them on the floor, like just their calm, their presence, and you know, their ability to control the game, not with the whistle, but just with their personalities. And that's something that really stood out. And a lot of the referees and my boss was really appreciative of that and learned a lot from our referees. So, and, you know, you too, Michael, you know, traveling the world and, you know, in working with referees around the world and giving them some of Canadiana, I think has really helped the world FIBA improve. So, you guys are great. I love you guys.
Rika, your